The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
You know, when I was contemplating what we were going to talk about this hour, looking at the news, discussing the same old boring COVID garbage that everybody talks about because that's all there is to talk about. Because they don't want us focusing on anything else. That's obvious. If they really cared, they're starting to slip in a little bit of the election, but overall, in general, they've kept us laser focused on the boogie woogie virus. And between the lockdown and some of the minor restrictions being lifted, they make it sound like it's going back to normal. Maybe it is. Maybe it is going back to normal. I don't believe that myself. But maybe gradually we'll get back to normal. But do we really want to go back to normal? You see, folks, we're at a turning point. We could go back to the life that was. That's what's at least being hinted at, that we can just go back with minor changes to our lifestyle, a little more social distancing, wearing masks, but you can have all that life back eventually, down the road, gradually. You can have all that back. But do we really want to have all that back? Look what that brought us. It brought us to a lockdown where it shows, at least publicly, that the people weren't prepared for anything like this. The state governments weren't prepared. The federal government, nobody was prepared for this. Except for the sordid few who were in on some simulations and watched and hoped for these kind of things. And I do believe they hoped for it. Because all of a sudden there's a geek out there that is the expert. And then that's really funny. Experts aren't experts anymore. It's people who the media projects as experts. But as far as I can tell, Mr. Bill Gates, he doesn't have a background per se. Well, he might actually with, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and their participation, their organization of Event 201, which we've covered here before. If you don't know what that is, please go to our website, www.jlebang.com, and find out more about that event. But getting back to the point I was making earlier about the turning point. See, if they eventually release these restrictions and we can go back to what would be considered normal life, how good was that? We still had the corruption in the government. Is that what you want? Do you want to continue? Do you want to go back to that? Because Going back to normal, which I'm hearing a lot of people clamor for. And I understand it has disrupted everybody's life, their behavior. But instead of learning from this, instead of committing to making some solutions so this never happens again, everybody just wants to go back to normal. And that wasn't a great system. Normal wasn't great for the little guy. Normal was great for the rich, the elite, the politicians, anybody who benefited from the makeup of the model of the current system. A system that doesn't base itself off of a constitution anymore. And as we've seen with the lockdowns, what constitution is there? That's been trampled upon. We've got state governors restricting travel where they are definitely overstepping their bounds. We've got a federal government led by Donald Trump who, for the sake of whatever, are forcing industries to convert or stay open, which is extremely troubling that the president is going to use another, what was that, the Industrial Protection Act or whatever they call it, part of the executive orders I spoke about, weeks ago now, where they can take over industries at will. That's what they're doing. And now they're telling the meat processors, the chicken and the beef and the pork, and they have to stay open even though they want to close now because they've had outbreaks. You understand that the president is trying to secure the food chain for the people. At least that's the way it looks on the face of it. And there'll be a lot of people who say that's good. But it's dictatorial-ish. It's no different than the state governor, like Governor Whitlis Gretchen in Michigan, who imposed all these dictatorial policies. She's relaxed a few. And the people think that that's changed anything. It's pretty interesting how she relaxed a couple of minor restrictions, but then extended through the middle of May, the stay-at-home order. So she gave you a little nugget. All you in Michigan, she gave you a little nugget and took more away. Took another 2 weeks away from you. It's hard to blame the governments. They weren't ready for this. So when this stuff comes down, there's only one thing they can do, is impose their will on you. Because nobody was ready for this. But as I go through the journey of this show today, I want to get your input about the turning point that I'm going to be talking about. Because it's a lot different than the turning point most people out there are talking about. We've got people going to the extreme that even the Antichrist is on the verge of showing himself. There's evidence that they use, circumstantial evidence, but they use it to make a pretty good argument for their case. But everybody, or most people who are talking about actual turning points, are either talking about turning points to the negative, war, famine, but all this other stuff, or it's turning points on more government control. Many of you feel that they've got us in a position to where they could do almost anything to us. If they were to back down now on their encroachment on our freedoms, it would almost be negligent on their part. They're on the verge of doing just that. All we need is a little push. But in doing so, they've exposed themselves to us. And I believe that a turning point could go the other way, but it really depends on how we as a people react to their powers, to their movements. I'm sort of a counterpuncher when I do games or even when I've gotten into scraps back in the day. I'm a counterpuncher. I wait for the aggressor to do their thing because I'm never going to be the aggressor. I always thought that was the American way, too. We're not the aggressor. That's why we call it national defense. We don't call it national offense. You know? We're supposed to be a nation that counterpunches. We're going to leave you alone. I mean, that isn't what has transpired over the past couple decades with the leadership of the country. But in general, that's how I've taken the American way when it comes to military action, when it comes to protecting yourself. It's always I'm not going to be the aggressor, but you aggress on me, you come at me. Same with our country. We're going to nail you, and we're going to nail you hard because you should have left me alone because I left you alone. Well, I think this turning point we could use to our own advantage. We're so close to, if we could just hold this out on our end and actually shut down, and I'm not talking about like the May 1st protesting against corporations, the people's power, that communist movement type stuff. If we really, really wanted to get a solution so that this could never happen again, and I'm talking about being unprepared when a virus or when anything, because if we're unprepared for a virus, and it was 20 years ago, or just under 20 years ago, that we were unprepared for airliners crashing into buildings, all that money in defense seems to be going to waste. All the trillions of dollars. If we can't be prepared for eventualities. Now you, me, everybody watching, everybody who may discuss this subject after the fact, and I hope you do, because we could really, and as we go along, I'm almost on a break here, so we'll get to most of this in the second and third and fourth segments as I expand on my idea here. I wanted to set it all up for you. But I think the turning point could be used in our favor, and it's because of the circumstances they brought on us that we might as well see the sucker through now and push them back. Because in their overreaching on the federal, state levels, even counties and local and your local government city levels, in all of their overreaching, they've exposed themselves. And I think we could make a huge difference if we take what is coming. There's an eventual turning point coming. It's which way we want to go. We'll expand on that as we continue the show. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. Hey, Uncle Shady, where are they going?
Hey, you, get back here. The John Lebang Show will be right back. Are you in need of commercial or residential window cleaning? Do you need your office cleaned? Maybe custodial work? How about some gutter cleaning? If you do, then call Pane in the Glass. For a beautiful shine that's crystal clear, call Pane and the Glass. You can find them on Facebook at Pane and the Glass. You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
It's better than an eye reader convention.
I believe part of the reason that they're slowly going to reopen the economy is not for our benefit. They eventually have to bring in some money to the government. Otherwise, they can't pay for all the things they want to. Sure, they borrowed a tremendous amount. Give us dribs and drabs. They borrowed a ton for themselves to do what, in their infinite wisdom, was right. For their pocketbooks, and it's never for the constituents. Don't believe that. Once a politician gets up there and they're away from their constituents, the virus of the swamp takes over their soul. And gradually and slowly these people change into these beasts that we've been trying to get rid of. And through all of this, even if the president had honorable intentions in the very beginning, you can see that the swamp has corrupted him along the way. He hasn't fixed the swamp at all. So it's obvious that once you're there, it's impossible to not get the ick on you. And once you get the virus, you don't develop this virus in Washington. There's no immune to it. It slowly takes you over, and you become a federal zombie of some sort. And I think with our turning point here, instead of us going back to work, and I need people to critically think this out a little bit, because it's going to cause hardship. But I'm trying to avoid a civil war, and I'm trying to avoid other wars. Now, this may force it. I don't know. But this slow burn that we're in is much more devastating to the country than getting something over in a faster fashion. Maybe we should have just let COVID rip through the country and overwhelm everything. You know, the sacrifice they're telling us that we made to save the medical system. The medical system that is now laying people off because nobody's using the medical system. That insurance that you pay extreme high amounts if you still have work, because so many people have been laid off. We're there. The turning point could go into a more communist, fascistic way of lifestyle, or we could turn it to a more constitutional-based society with some changes. And I think all we need to do, since they've got us home, is the rest of us just say, you know what, we're done working. We're done. Until this all gets fixed. You guys don't get any money. And the only way they get money is if we work. And we buy stuff. And if nobody's working, nobody's buying anything. And then instead of making it on some kind of communist holiday, like all the people that are going to be, you know, the Walmarts, the Targets, FedEx, there's a whole bunch planning on going on some kind of unprecedented strike. Love the media attention to that on May Day. They picked that day, right? Day of communism to fight back. When I was thinking about that, I was like, you can't, just one day of strike is never going to do a dang thing. Never. They don't care. So maybe what we need to do is really sit this one out and say, you know what, we're done. $6.2 trillion stimulus bill did nothing to help the American people at all. You helped out industries, the LA Lakers. You bailed out cruise lines because they're so important. Then you give us a check for $1,200. That's our own money. It's a loan on our own money. Money you take from us. He said, and this is going to continue to creep that way if we allow the turning point that most of us know we're in one, right? I'm not imagining this. We're on the precipice of a whole new world. And if we don't do something, if we don't do some kind of pushback, and protests don't do it, folks. And right now, I'd rather not get us into some kind of military conflict. So what options are there? We're already home, good portions of us. I propose, and I have no concept of thinking that people are going to do this. But we have to come up with a solution. Somebody has to. And I'm not hearing many of them. Tests are not a solution to COVID-19. In fact, it's been brought up, and it's a very good observation that they could actually be the vaccine in the long run. If anything, they're going to get your DNA off of a test, and that's great. But I think, getting back to what I was saying, we're almost there, folks, and if we push back, because they need money, and we don't have to do it through protesting, physical protesting, where we go up to a state capitol and complain, because I'm sick of the complainers on top of it. You can complain all you want, all you people that want to get back to work, complain about that. When you get back to work, how are you going to feed your family when the meat industry is practically decimated right now? So maybe we should all seriously stock up. And on the 4th of July, the day of freedom, ladies and gentlemen, not the communist day, not to do it for one day that's going to get absolutely nothing accomplished. On the 4th of July, Independence Day, we just say we're on strike as a nation. The people of the United States are on strike. We're staying home until all of you up there in Washington get the hell out. We got an election coming, and I'm not in favor of anybody running right now. I don't know how many of you approve of any of these politicians. How can you approve of them? Especially Trump. If you're using a critical mind, people, he's taking over industries. He's allowing the governors to do what they want to do, and a tweet against it is doing nothing to cure the situation. Trust me, I hold no hope that this will become an actual movement where people will just say we've had enough. And once we shut it all down, though, folks, the best part of shutting it all down is we've had a couple months to all prepare the best we can, because they're starving us out, whether intentionally or just by sheer stupidity on how they've handled this crisis. You can choose which one it is, but nobody's been brilliant. Nobody has done a great job in this. And the people that claim they do, well, you got to wonder their motives behind all this. Because there was a whole slew of them over there in that infected town of D.C., pretty much unanimously passed through these bills that all it did was stretch out the debt even further, and it accomplished nothing. Nothing. Yet we made the curve so less people got sick, so the healthcare system has nobody going to it anymore. What a curve. What a curve. More people are going to the paint store than to the hospital these days. And you pay insurance for that. Sure, there's in the hot spots, areas where, hospitals that are overwhelmed. We got the story about that lady who worked in I think she was a doctor, and she committed suicide because it was too overwhelming. Again, the down players overlook that sort of thing, that there are people being ravaged and have to deal with this on a daily basis. Well, there's a whole bunch of us not wide open, so I understand the complaints. But complaining will fix nothing, folks. We're past complaining. We need action. And because I don't want to go into some kind of armed conflict with the government, and I don't want to go back to normal. Normal sucked. Might have been great for a lot of people. It wasn't so great on this end of the deal. So do we want to allow these politicians to push us further towards their private agendas that have nothing to do with Americanism? Nothing to do with the Constitution. In fact, the Constitution has been trampled on all levels of government during this supposed crisis. And the people who want to jump right back in because they weren't prepared for this, and that's what it is. You see the stories, we can't feed our kids, they're waiting in these long lines. Those are people that are unprepared. They're not going to learn from this. So when we watch this turning point that we're at, do we want those people who weren't prepared for this to control the direction along with the politicians, or do we say enough is enough? We need some solutions, and that's where I'm hoping some of you will chime in. Send me some solutions so we can talk about this. But I think we need, as a country, to go on strike, even in the voting department. We need to change how things go from here forth. Because I'm telling you, folks, it's not going to get better if we continue down the path of going back to normality. Because the new normal is going to suck worse than the old normal. Remember how things changed after 9/11? Those of you who are old enough to remember that? Because I speak to a lot of young people who just do not grasp the freedom we used to have before 9/11. They were born in to the 9/11 culture and after, where the world changed, where freedoms were taken away, and they don't understand that there's some better times before all that, before the government took away freedoms, increased their surveillance, became a big brother beyond the big brother we were already worried about before that. And that's exactly what's going to happen at this turning point in American history if we allow it to go back to the normal. Because normal is no longer going to be the normal that was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 6 months ago. The new normal is going to be whatever the people who failed us from the very beginning will dictate. That's what the normal is going to be, not a normal that you're used to. And I hope you understand that, folks. We'll be back in, just a short time to get to our next segment. We're going to continue this because I don't really want to talk about the news. I don't want to talk about COVID-19 and the numbers and all that stuff. Because we're so far beyond that, folks. And if you don't understand that, if you're still stuck on COVID-19, you're never going to get it.
Don't move a muscle.
The John Lebang Show will be right back.
With lots of fun and excitement. Yes!
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is your one-stop shop for tuxedos and men's quality suits. We go the extra mile to make sure your tux or suit is the perfect fit. Our huge selection is second to none in the state.
Looking good.
Outstanding customer service.
And we're located on Dix Toledo in Southgate. Call today, 734-285-3253.
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is the place to be.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to Jim's Tuxedos and Menswear.
You know I had to come to the best.
That's right.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
And I know this is really a pie-in-the-sky dream of mine, because human behavior and American behavior on top of that, most people aren't going to see this or aren't going to want to take that kind of risk. But we're there, folks. This is the only time in history we might be able to do this with any moral high ground. And that's what you need when you're going to fix problems, when you're going to come up with real solutions. You have to have the moral high ground. Right now, what are the solutions? Tests, masks that are hardly useful. What are the other? Stay home. So there are no solutions. There are only contingencies in all this. Oh, we got to do this next. We got to do this next. We got to do this next. And that's going to be the concept, the mindset going forth into reopening the country, which I still contend we never really closed the country. We shut it down in certain aspects, and we sent a lot of people home who weren't that important to the running of the country, but we still had many people out there working. Many people who were still exposed to that boogie woogie virus, that whether you believe the numbers, you don't believe the numbers, whatever side you're on, it's become the least of the concerns in all this. The government overreach has been far more dangerous than the boogie woogie virus. But the people, and you're hearing it pour right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're having a storm, so please forgive the background noise. But the people who downplay it when the United States is the worst in the world, thank you very much, the worst in the world. Maybe it's because of our freedoms, because we couldn't do the Chinese model where we rounded up everybody and got rid of a whole bunch, made them bye-bye, and maybe they didn't count in the official numbers because, well, when you're shot at gunpoint or you're burned alive or whatever might have happened to those poor people out there, and there's been a lot of stories, even being welded into their homes, they may not make those official numbers. But again, we've got a really important decision to make as a people here, folks. And if we just continue the path to normality, it's going to be the normal that they decide, not that we want to have. And for a person like myself, that's unacceptable. They've already gone too far. We cannot let them have any more control over this. So the only way is to sit it out. At least it's the only peaceful way to do it. Protesting does nothing. And if we can avoid an armed conflict, that would be great. The problem is, I know this is a pipe dream. And a great many people in this country, not only the ones that weren't prepared for this, but many others, they're never going to see the value in the opportunity we have right now. Because they need our money. They can't do anything without our money. And we have the moral high ground right now because on all levels of government, they've overreached. At the same time, allowing this thing to get into the country. So there's failures. They have no moral high ground. No matter who is speaking. Trump, Fauci, Pelosi, Schumer, they're done. All of them have no credibility. I don't care about their credentials. Credentials mean nothing when the problem arises and it's failure after failure after failure, and the best thing they got are tests. Tests and masks. That's the best they got. That's their defense. Stay home. Stay away from everybody. That's their best defense. And if you want to go back to that normal, folks, the normal that they are going to dictate, because it's not. I'm going to keep saying this till I'm blue in the face, and I'm sorry if I'm repetitive. It's not going to go back to the normal we knew. It might resemble it in some variations or some ways, but it's not going to be the same. They've already told us, they've conditioned society. And can't you see that this, from front to back, has been a conditioning of society? They used the boogie woogie virus to implement a bunch of things they couldn't do and to do things beyond that. Because what were the people going to do? We're vulnerable. We're helpless. And that's why they get away with it. Because we act like we're helpless. We're the victim. We're the victim. Well, I'm tired of victimhood. I'm tired of the people who are complaining because the government overreached. A lot of that is because of the people's fault. When they advise you to stay home for 2 weeks, you should have done it, but you didn't. You should have stayed home for a month. But the people weren't prepared for it. Not just financially, but mentally, they couldn't handle it. We had that talk, a month ago, getting your mind right through all this. Because if you weren't prepared to get through this here in the head, you weren't going to make it no matter how much money you had. And that's why we're hearing about suicides and going back to work, risking it. They'd rather risk going out and catching the virus. A virus that it doesn't matter anymore. Right? Might as well, we should have all got it or shut it all down, one or the other by now. But they've moved the goal line. Remember? Back in March, it was like, over the next 2 weeks, it's going to be this. It's going to be the worst in the next 2 weeks. And then that 2 weeks happened. And right before it ended, it's going to be even worse this next 2 weeks. And it kept getting worse and worse. They're using this to not only cover their incompetence, but to implement things they couldn't do before. Makes me angry. And I know how the people are going to react to this. They just want to go back to normal. I'm telling you folks, normal not only is not going to fix this problem, it's going to make it worse. So I'm asking you, give me some suggestions as we kind of develop this plan here. Again, I don't believe for one moment I'm not big enough. I'm not exciting enough. I'm not one of those cool pop figures that could, you can get behind, I'm just some schlub who does a show, musician past, no real big, degrees or anything like that. I'm nobody important. I happen to care more than the important people. And I bet you I could come up with a lot more solutions than they could come up with. Only because I live life. I have to come up with solutions or else I don't survive. See, they can make mistakes up there, those politicians, and there's no ramifications. We don't hold them accountable. In our lives, if we're responsible people, everything's our fault. We take on all that responsibility. And I think the responsibility of the new normal better be on us instead of them. And I think what better way to kick off a citizen strike on the government and industries? Because there's plenty of industries out there that have not taken their employees' safety to heart. That dollar was so important. It was so important that they put their employees at risk. Maybe in the last segment, I'll allude to a conversation I had with a recent superior at the place I work at. We won't give names or anything, but you can tell that they don't know what to do. Nobody knows how to come up with a solution, or nobody's brave enough to say, hey, we can fix it. I have ideas, and we'll get to that in the fourth segment of the show. I think we'll just ramble on some ideas on how we can force or the changes we need. How we achieve these changes are a whole different method. It's gonna take grit and willpower of the entire population of the country, which means it's never going to happen. But I'm trying to offer a way out of this, because we cannot keep marching to these people's directions, because they get it wrong every time. They can't prevent a damn thing from happening. They couldn't prevent 9/11. They couldn't prevent the stock market crash. They couldn't even prevent a bug from entering the country. They let it in. And we're supposed to just let them? No, they're not. We have to be done with politicians in general. But it's going to be on us. And it's funny because Roy Potter now he's taking this into a different approach, but it got me thinking a little bit. Roy Potter, he just did a video on just the times and where we should be headed, and he was using biblical references, which I'm not going to do here. Got a damn sneeze coming on there. Sorry about that, folks. But it was all about fixing, putting it in our hands, because we can't. He was like, we can't have leaders anymore. I agree with him. He used the biblical aspect of it, but we can't have leaders anymore because they always lead us in the wrong direction. And it's kind of my whole bit here tonight. And in the final segment, I'll just throw some ideas out. And I'm hoping you guys watching, and we're going to make the whole show available on video. It'll be in segments, folks, because I understand the YouTube crowd doesn't like the long videos. So we'll have the YouTube videos out, but they'll be in segments like we break them up here. And we'll throw out some ideas in the next segment. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. Thanks a lot for tuning in.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
Because the John Lebang Show will be right back.
After this. That's guaranteed. Yes. Absolute Skin and Body Care, located in Livonia, Michigan. If you're in need of laser hair removal, skin care, laser tattoo removal, or laser hair regrowth, call Absolute Skin and Body Care. They're located at 37625 Ann Arbor Road, Suite 105 in Livonia, Michigan. Their phone number is 248-533-0448. Absolute Skin and Body Care. Give them a call. You're listening to the John LeBang Show. It's huge. Now I got to tweet about it.
It's simple at this point, ladies and gentlemen. It's pretty simple. We've got to take responsibility and the direction of the country in our own hands, because if we continue to leave it up to these incompetent fools, and that's me giving them the benefit of the doubt, by the way, that they're just not some dirtbag trying to get more power over us. Even though I know in my heart that's exactly what they are. We're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and just say they're incompetent. We can't leave them in control of our destiny any longer. And if we go back to work, go back to what they expected us to do, it's all followed the plan right along. Once they started imposing the masks, notice how many masks popped up, even though, and not all of them are homemade, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, even though they're not the N95s, the ones they tell us are the ones that actually work. They're making us wear masks that don't work, ladies and gentlemen. That don't work. It's all to condition you. It's all to prep you for the new normal. So, and resisting that is the only thing. Staying home. Right now, by their order, we should all just stay home and say, you know what, screw you guys. Now, I know a lot of people have rent and all kinds of other things they have to worry about. That's why we got to do this in a 2-month plan and figure this out. And I know 2 months are, July's not that far off. That's why I say it's a little over 2 months. If we don't do something drastic on our end, it's never going to be fixed. And if this ever were to occur, which I have no hope, as I've said many times already, then we have to change how things work going forward with how the government distributes money. And they can't have money. Politicians cannot be in control of the money anymore. One proposal that I would do, if I was of anybody of importance, one solution would be that politicians can create programs, but they don't decide how much money goes to it. And there is no income tax anymore. The Federal Reserve and the income tax is one of the first things that has to go. We have to go back to making our own money, none of this digital crap. Because digital is going to be even worse. Because if they want to wipe out all your money for some reason, you make somebody mad and they find a way to hack into it. And we know how much more easy, how incredibly easy it is today for these hackers to go and steal data, change data, do whatever they want. Eventually, they'll be able to zero out all our money. Did you ever think of that, folks? Even if some government, some nefarious government, some evil dictator doesn't do it, some really smart hacker might figure a way to zero out a lot of our money. If it's all digital. You can't go digital. It's not even constitutional. But I was never for the cryptocurrency. We would avoid all that cryptocurrency as well. But the solution has to be the politicians can decide on whatever programs there might be, and then we get a big thing on tax day. Instead of the bill being paid back to us by April 15th, or we having to pay something to the government because we owe them money, On April 15th every year, we can make it the day that we get the booklet from the government of all available programs, and we can sort through it. This is our tax document. This takes responsibility, folks, by the way. So the people who just don't want to do it are not going to be for this, but this is the way we fix it, in my humble opinion. We leaf through all the programs and we donate what we want. We donate it's voluntary tax then to whatever program we want. We don't want any of them, and we'll see which programs are going to be worthy of survival, and we'll see how many people actually put foreign aid in there to help foreign aid. We'll see that, and that'll be all. Zimbabwe will only get as much as people put in voluntarily to help out Zimbabwe. Or I was going to say Yugoslavia, but that's not around anymore. But I'm just speaking in general, foreign aid. We send a big pamphlet, do our taxes, and understand I said that's voluntary. In other words, there's no income tax. There's no amount that the federal government gets by taxing you. You can, through the programs that are available, donate what you want voluntarily to each program. You want to donate $10 to Planned Parenthood? That's your right. Go ahead and do it. If you don't want to give to Planned Parenthood, you see that little thing and you skip past it. You go, no, I don't want to give anything there. See how that works? We take the spending out of the hands of the politician because they are not responsible. At very least, they're not responsible. Now, they can create all the programs they want. And every bill and every law, this is another thing we should do. Just me. I know it's a pipe dream, folks. Just me bloviating here. I'm just letting out some ideas on the radio. But maybe we should make a constitutional amendment stating that all laws, all bills, everything passed through comes in piecemeal. One thing at a time. You can't throw a bunch of amendments in there that add bulk to these bills. And you do everything one at a time. You need a road bill, you only deal with roads. You need a space program bill, you only deal with space. You need a stimulus for a virus to help the people. You only give a stimulus to help the people. See how that works? You don't cram in a bunch of other stuff. You make that against the law through the Constitution, and let's get it. And then we won't have that problem. Term limits then will be easy because, and I think we still have them if we actually voted properly, and we've seen it, but we don't hold these people accountable. You vote them out. That's how they get a term limit. You don't keep voting for the same person over and over and over and over and over and over and over. You don't vote for the same party. That would be another thing. Parties would be gone. Parties are as irrelevant these days as many other of the tired, old, boorish government BS that we have to deal with. I'm sick of the two-party system. It's worthless. We should have a no-party system run on the individual. If we have to have people administrating certain parts of the government, let's vote on them, okay? But let's vote on them not because they're affiliated to some party, and if we find out they are part of a party, you're disqualified, buddy. We don't want you. We don't want a greater agenda beyond the American agenda, beyond freedom, the Constitution. We don't want that. Those are just some of the ideas I've been having cross my mind as we're going through this, and we're at a precipice where we have to decide which way we want to go. If we're going to follow the politician again, if we're going to do the same old just to get back to normal, then we're going to deserve what we get. The dictatorial powers, the dictatorial edicts, all the stuff that's coming down the line because we gave them the power to do it. This time around, we allowed them to get away with it, and we didn't hold them accountable. And the only way to hold them accountable is not protesting up at your government building up there, wherever your state capital is. That's not how you do it anymore. It doesn't work. They don't listen to you. They're too big to hear your gripes, because that's all they are, is complaints. You can't wait for something to happen. Same with the Vic video. You can't wait for something to happen, allow it to happen. Already, it's well past the point of talking about it and then get mad about it. Complain, you can't do it then. What you got to do is make it so it never happens in the first place. That's the only way to avoid these things. Because once they do it once, folks, they're going to continue to do it in the future. Now, every other boogie-woogie virus that comes down the pike, they have the opportunity to pull this stuff on you. And on the other hand, if this was an EMP like we spoke about 2 shows ago or 3 shows ago, how the heck was anybody going to be ready for that? We have to be more responsible on our end. We have to be ready for these eventualities, because the government is never going to be. And do we want to be like our government? And I'm not talking about the constitutional parts of the government. I am talking about the people who run the damn thing. Do we really want to be like them? Crisis management. Delay. Wait. Get things wrong. No, we can't afford that any longer as a free people. If we're even a free people anymore. We're right there, folks. We have a choice. If we go this way, it's right into their hands. They're going to control it all, and we might as well just jump on board and accept it all from now on. Don't complain anymore. Just let them run it wherever they want to run it and forget about it. Or we need to do something while we still have a chance. And the only way to do it, in my humble opinion, without bloodshed, because I don't want to do that. Because I'm not going to probably pick a side. I can't trust most people that want to push an agenda. You know what I'm saying? Even the freedom agenda is well, there's a lot of blasphemy against the Constitution. Let's just say that. So I don't want to go down that road. And many of you, I know, don't want to go down that road. And there's a lot of you that want to stay out of the way. I'm a lot closer to you than most of the other people out there. I've thought about it. We can stay out of the way. Let it all work itself out. But if we're going to do that, we're going to get enveloped into it eventually. We can only stay out of the way so long. So you might as well accept it at that point. My only solution as of right this minute, because all the other stuff I've talked about can't be implemented until we hold their feet to the fire. And it's not going to be elections that do it, folks. They never work. It continues down the road. Maybe a little slower, but it continues down the road. I think we should, as a country, since we're sitting home, let's just all sit it out till they get the hell out of there. Tell them we don't want any of them. I think we want to change over the people in government from top to bottom. No, that's going to cause a lot of problems, folks. There's going to be a lot of other issues that arise from that. It's going to be painful, but getting your freedom was never easy. And most of us haven't had to really fight for it. We left that to our forefathers to do. Well, it might be our time. And in the 21st century, bloodshed is not the best way to handle it. Money controls everything. If we don't allow them to get any money, they're not going to have control over anything. Let me know what you think, folks. We'll got to get on out of here. Thanks for tuning in. Go to our website, www.jlebang.com, and we'll see you next time, right here on The John LeBang Show. Thank you for listening.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.